Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the weekly update with Oakwood Financial Group. I'm Joshua Doby. Thank you so much for continuing to embrace this medium, especially during this time of COVID-19. So obviously still a lot of confusion and uncertainty with regards to looking forward kinds of things, and we're continuing to monitor any number of variables as we're seeking to understand economically and financially what the ongoing impacts of COVID-19 will be. As has become our custom, we want to give you some thoughts about some macroeconomic issues, a couple of personal points to keep in mind, and then we'll get out of your hair and let you get on your way. First, as far as macroeconomic items are concerned, we had another round of unemployment claims this week. Again, still stubbornly high at about 1.4 million new claims. Ongoing claims, about 19 million. Again, still stubbornly high and flatlining a little bit. We did, though, from an unemployment standpoint, actually on the employment side this week, for the first time in several months, received some encouraging news, probably due to the reopening of states' economies, about 4.8 million new jobs. Now, very likely the majority of these jobs, especially when we see from which industries they came, are folks being hired back as certain businesses are reopening. So 4.8 million, the highest number ever by a long, long margin. But again, taking it in context, we also had the highest unemployment numbers ever as well due to the public health issues regarding COVID-19. So again, some conflicting data, hard really to ascertain in the near term exactly what that means. We do know, though, that states are beginning to reopen, and that is producing some positive effects, and we're seeing that across the board. But we're also seeing some not so positive effects. One of the things that's true with a lot of states that have reopened and are continuing to reopen is that we're seeing a rise in the number of folks who are being tested positive for COVID-19. Again, important to keep that in context, though, because relative to the number of infections, percentage-wise, hospitalizations, and deaths attributable, those percentages are flatlining to reducing. So again, really, really hard to sift through all of the data. I know you're being deluged just like I am with all kinds of news reports all day, every day. And one of the most significant things with which we're working here at Oakwood is to determine what data are relevant and what data have some kind of political slant associated with them. So we're doing that, and we're trying to give you a very balanced look at where things are right now. So some good news and still some concerning news on the unemployment front. As I mentioned, states are continuing to reopen their economies. So that's, again, what provided the spark as far as a jump in new jobs are concerned for last month. However, that's a very start and stop kind of process. And we're even seeing, as of the time of this recording, some states beginning to pedal back a little bit and even restricting some of the opening process for states around the country. So you want to keep that in mind as well. It's not going to be a straight line. We're probably going to have some more start and stop aspect of things, including, and I would offer from a variability standpoint, one of the most significant items, what school and college and university experiences are going to look like in the fall. Almost every state in the union about which I'm aware is having a very serious conversation right now about how that's going to look. Everything from a pure e-learning, no one on campus kind of scenario to a business as usual kind of scenario, and everything in between, including hybrids of e-learning and on-campus experience. No issues have been resolved there yet. States and school districts are continuing to have that conversation. I would offer, again, from a variability standpoint, that experience of the going back to school and going back to campus idea is probably going to have a pretty significant effect on our economy. Not saying it in a permanent way, but in a short-term kind of way. If we think about it in terms of productivity for working parents, if you have two working parents, if there is a single parent household, all of those things are going to impact their ability to do their jobs, especially if they need to be on site, and maybe even more so if they have to work at home. So some pretty significant things to keep in mind there when it's coming to that aspect of the reopening process. Again, as we've mentioned several times in these videos, this is going to be an ongoing kind of thing. We're not going to move directly out of this as fast as we moved into it. So stay tuned. We're continuing to watch a number of different variables on that front. Next big item, legislation. You've heard me say a number of times now that there are several, actually, iterations of legislation moving through Congress right now. One moved through the House of Representatives, but was dead on arrival at the Senate. That was expected. However, there are now several different versions of that piece moving through the negotiation process in Congress. in conjunction with the White House. At this point, we're anticipating that probably in July or August, we're going to get another piece of legislation which will include some level of relief for individuals and families and small businesses. Similar maybe, or not so similar, we don't know yet, to what has already passed through with regards to the CARES Act and Secure Act and other pieces of legislation. So stay tuned on that. Because the increased unemployment insurance right now expires at the end of July, that's one of the reasons that we're expecting we're going to hear something from Congress right around that time. So that's why we're saying the July-August timeframe. All right, what about a couple of personal things to keep in mind? We've had this question a lot here over the last couple of weeks, so we want to make this a part of the update for you, our Oakwood family, with regards to RMDs, or required minimum distributions. As I mentioned, they've been waived for 2020, so if you are normally required to take a distribution from your IRA because you're at age 70 and a half or beyond, that has been waived for 2020. Another important part of that to keep in mind, though, and this literally just came out in the last week, another interpretation from the IRS. Let's say you took out your RMD or required minimum distribution in January, or a part of it in January or February before COVID-19 impacted our economies in the ways that it did. But if you could go back, you would prefer not to have taken it. We literally just received interpretation from the IRS, without going too far into the 22 pages that it took to explain it, that up to the end of August of this year, if you would like to return that required minimum distribution back into your IRA, you can do so. Let me say that again. If you would like to return your required minimum distribution back into your IRA or your retirement account because you don't need it and you don't want it to be taxable on your tax return, you can actually do that up until the end of August right now, and it will not be considered taxable to you. So a very important point to keep in mind. A couple of other things with regards to dates. In a couple of weeks, tax filing deadline, July 15th, is going to be that revised time. Also, if you want to make IRA contributions or retirement plan contributions, you are also able to do that up until that July 15th timeframe. You've heard me mention a couple of times about the opportunity to offset up to 100% of your adjusted gross income in 2020 if you are charitably inclined. Again, a very important planning point if you're thinking about that. And then finally, with regards to just the overall mix of things market-wise, as you know, we're continuing to watch things. And there still are a lot of variables in play. It's almost an expression of two separate economies. You have the one part of the economy which has been decimated: airlines, hospitality, sports, entertainment, anything that has to do with large crowds has just been decimated. Then you have the other end of the economy, which actually is doing very, very well right now: biotech, technology overall, consumer staples. Those parts of the economy are doing exceptionally well. So what does that mean from an overall financial planning and portfolio management standpoint? Well, I'm going to give you a terrible answer to start out. It depends on your particular situation. Everybody's situation is unique, so it can mean different things to different people. I'm offering those as part of this format, in this video format, just to say it's something that we need to keep in mind. If you'd like to chat about it at any time relative to your particular space, always feel free to reach out to us or through the email, or we can set up one of these Zoom video calls that have become so commonplace during this time. Well, friends, I want to be very respectful of your time. Thank you so much, again, for your willingness to check in with us here on the Oakwood Updates. We're going to continue this format for at least some measure of time, especially during this time of COVID-19. Always know that if you would like to reach out to us via phone, via email, via Zoom video call, I always enjoy hearing from you. Until the next time, friends, I'll look forward to talking with you soon.